Right, let's get into our first topic now. Should Liz Truss be allowed to have a resignation honours list? 0207 862 2222 is the number, so give us a call. Former Prime Minister Liz Truss is believed to have a resignation honours list of 14 names. And at least 2 people have declined honours from her, as they said it was too humiliating to receive an award from the shortest ever serving Prime Minister. If the names are accepted by the House of Lords, this means Truss has given out one honour for every 4 days of her 6 weeks at Downing Street. So she was there for 49 days in total. Henry, do you think she deserves this honours list?
No, this is a very easy decision. I mean, there are going to be some issues here which are going to be a little bit delicate and difficult to work out what our positions are. This is not one of them. I mean, there have been 57 prime ministers of this country since 1721. I think it was Walpole was the first, so 300 or so years. She, by anybody's measure, is probably one of the worst. 49 days. I mean, let's remember what her period in office is known for, the so-called kamikaze budget, these unfunded tax promises, this heir to Thatcher. I mean, she managed to win over the Tory party in the country, but not the people of the city. And she was supposed to be this free marketeer who understood the city and who was going to go for growth, as she put it. So for her to have the temerity to even come up with an honours list, a resignation list, just shows you the kind of person she is. And it makes an even bigger mockery of the honours system.
Is this not just part of the process, though, Cristo? I mean, she was a Prime Minister. Forget about the fact that it was 49 days or 490 days. It's just part of what happens when you're Prime Minister. When you leave, you get the opportunity to nominate people for the honours list.
Absolutely. And she was Prime Minister. She is honouring people whom it's not just for the 4 days per person. Mm-hmm. It's people who have helped her get to the stage of being Prime Minister. It is people who have helped her during her career. And as you have alluded to, that is the system. Now, I mean, you look like you're very...
Well, no, because I love it when you said she is honouring people who've helped her.
Yes.
Just because they've helped her doesn't mean they've helped the country. What about rewarding people who've helped the country?
In fairness, actually, I don't think that Liz Truss, now, when we look at our economic situation, I think she made mistakes in the fact that she hadn't costed a lot of what she had done, and the fact that she also gave tax cuts stupidly to the top end rather than at the bottom end. But actually, the growth she was going for is precisely what many of the parties are saying that we now need. The inflation and the interest rate rises now are happening under Rishi Sunak's watch. A lot of what she was doing in principle has actually been validated. The
practice, has not. You sound like you're part of her non-apology tour. She's been going on a non-apology tour. She needs to be quiet and rethink her economic strategy rather than giving gongs to the people who told her how to think. And Mark Littlewood, who's going to be Lord Littlewood from the Institute of Economic Affairs, it's extraordinary.
Yeah, but that's exactly what we should be going for. We should be a low-tax society that is going for growth. That is precisely what we should be doing.
That wants massive public services that have to be paid for somehow.
Yes, and you don't pay for public services with an economy that isn't growing. Our economy has been stagnant for so long. Did she do it in the right way? Absolutely not. I agree she made mistakes. I've acknowledged she made mistakes, but the principles of what she was actually aiming for are absolutely sound.
But anybody can say, I want growth. It's how you do it. I mean, we can't reward her just for saying, I want growth.
No, you reward someone who has the principle of a low-tax society that drives economic growth, which is what she actually wanted. She made mistakes by not costing it properly, which I've acknowledged. I absolutely agree with that. And I'm actually irritated that she made such a pig's ear of the implementation, because now...
Isn't the implementation the key? Everybody can have good principles, but if you can't implement them in a job where that is essentially your job to be able to do that...
But that doesn't mean that the principles aren't sound. It's the implementation that wasn't. And what's annoyed me, and where I think the criticism is reasonable, is now if any person on the right, any person who would be considered centre-right than myself, not that I particularly love this government, says now we should go for growth and low tax cuts, everyone says, well, look, Liz Truss did that, and it's not right. Whereas that's been proven. It was the Tony Blair model. It was the Thatcher model. It has been proven to lead to economic growth for us. Now, when it comes to the honours list, That is the system. Now, you're absolutely fair to say, look, this system needs to be changed, but she was Prime Minister. She has the right to have an honours list. And I think some of the discourse around some of the honours that have been had, when people don't actually know the people involved. For instance, I know Ross Kempsell. Kempsell was one of the younger honours.
I think he's 31 years old.
Boris
Johnson,
Johnson's
chief of staff, is that, or senior advisor.
And he was a political journalist.
Yeah.
He's an absolutely, he used to work on my show, actually. Absolutely brilliant young man. And people don't know anything about him and are just basically saying he's 31 and that makes him invalid in order to have an honour. Is the honour system perfect? Absolutely not. Is the system by which prime ministers can appoint people valid, which Labour have done many times over the years as well? Gordon Brown, Tony Blair. Absolutely not. But
maybe what we need
then,
maybe
don't have a go at the person for utilising the system.
A Prime Minister for 49 days, though. I mean, should we be actually looking at it? Should be more about time served. Should there be a minimum amount of time?
A minimum of at least maybe introducing one period of legislation, a Queen's speech at least. You didn't even get to do that.
No, what I would, the way I would probably alter it would be that you get a certain amount of honours for a certain amount of time. So, for every month you get, I don't know, for every 3 months you get an honour, and maybe that would be a way forward of saying that the longer you are Prime Minister, the more you have to reward people for, and the shorter that you are, you get a shorter amount of honours.
Or maybe
but the principle of having honours, I'm not against.
Or maybe we need a more robust check and balance. So, for example, the House of Lords Appointments Committee, HOLAC, rejected a couple of Boris Johnson's suggestions, and maybe there should be another body, not just policing who goes into the House of Lords, but who polices who gets honours and who can push back more robustly against prime ministers who would abuse the system. Because if you look at the list of people who Liz Truss is going to award and who Boris Johnson did, and even Theresa May going back, many of them are people who not just made them feel good and advised them, but people who gave them money. And I think that helps to corrupt the system.
Let's take some calls on this. We've got Robin from Bedfordshire. Hi there, Robin.
Oh, hello there.
Hello, thanks for being with us this morning. What are your thoughts? Do you think we should be allowing Liz Truss to have this resignation honours list? Do you think it's fair?
I think it's disgusting. I really can't see what she's done for the country that would allow that sort of honour to be given to her. Politicians in general, it goes to their head, the fact that they have power in this country. But in the case of Liz Truss, she ruined the country, in my opinion, and she should be sent to a desert island.
OK, Robin, thank you very much for your call. I'm sure there's elements of what Robin said that you'd agree with there. Maybe not the desert island
Not
section.
a desert island, maybe Rwanda. No, Rwanda's actually very nice and she would probably enjoy it there because she's come from Britain, which has a good relationship with Rwanda. But people are not stupid. And when they see this kind of thing going on, they think, who do they think we are? Many people will have had their lives literally made far more difficult by Liz Truss's policies, not least because it was after that mini budget that we saw all the mortgage rates increase. And people are really suffering now. And it was triggered by that.
But we've seen about, I think, 7 or 8 mortgage rises since then. We've had 14 consecutive interest rate rises. And you're right that they began when the markets got worried about Liz Truss not having costed properly what she was trying to implement. But Rishi Sunak has been Prime Minister for a lot longer since, and those rates have still got up. We've still got the highest tax burden in history. We have never paid more tax in this country in history.
But remember, part of the reason for that is something called the pandemic, which has a long tail, and we borrowed about £400 billion. So clearly,
I think that was an absolute mistake as well.
What, to keep people in their jobs during the pandemic?
Well, yes, what I would have liked to have seen is, I understood, I don't want to go down a pandemic rabbit hole, but I understood the first lockdown, but the fact that we were boomeranging back into lockdowns, meaning that we had to print money, of course that was going to lead to inflation, and of course that was going to lead to some of the economic distress that we have now, which, again, Rishi Sunak was in charge of that, not Liz Truss. And so, do I think that she was perfect? Absolutely not. But the principle of what she was going for, we have stagnant growth, the highest tax burden in history, we've got debt coming out of our ears, and interest rates have continued to go up under Rishi Sunak. You can't put all of that on Liz Truss.
She made those massive tax cuts. There's that 44 billion or so pounds of unfunded tax cuts on the basis that, well, as a result of what I've done, we're going to grow by 2, 3, 4, 5%. And the city, which is not a left-wing institution, all these hedge fund managers thought, well, based on our experience, no, it's not.
And that
no,
was
you're
wrong.
not. And that was why we're in this situation.
The tax cuts should have been from those who were lower paid in society. It was mind-boggling to me, and I agree with you on that was where those tax cuts were chosen.
Which is why she should forfeit the privilege of giving out these
But the principle
Going
of
back
what
to
she was
the-
going for was right.
Going back to the honest list, though, I think it's interesting that at least 2 people turned down the nomination. So, I mean, does an honour like this actually hold any weight from the shortest serving Prime Minister? If you were the recipient of this award, as it were, would you be feeling that happy about it?
But again, she didn't just start her political career and have 49 days in politics. She's been an MP for many years. She's had many people around her for many years. Therefore, she was only in a position when Prime Minister to give them honours. So I would imagine that some of them were honours for people that have been in her political life for a lot longer than 49 days.
I'm trying to think. She's had lots and lots of portfolios. She's been Justice Secretary, she's Foreign Secretary. She had about 6, 7 very senior ministerial posts, but isn't known to have distinguished herself in those posts. And that's one of the reasons why I think that if you got a gong from the Truss Premiership, you wouldn't shout about it very, very loudly. If you got a gong maybe from the Cameron Premiership or the Blair Premiership, something that was maybe a bit more transformational, you'll say, well, that's what I served. This is what we took the country through. This is what we delivered, maybe including growth or huge expansion in the National Health Service. So I'm proud to say I got my gong from that particular regime, not from the Truss regime, which helped to bankrupt the economy.
Or actually, if you're just up for the gong, maybe once you've got it, you're not really mentioning who gave it to you. You're just happy that you've got the title in front of your name.
The money.
Maybe, but I salute those 2 people who said, actually, this is beneath me, this is cheap. I don't think I merit this. I don't think she deserves to give out a gong. I mean, I don't know exactly what they said, but the fact that they turned down a bauble that many people would accept and about 14 or so are going to accept, I salute them for that. They've got a sense of humility.
Do you think more people would have respected Liz if she actually refused to do the honours list and said, you know what, guys, my principles are there, but I wasn't there for that long to implement them, therefore I'm going to step aside from this?
I mean, she had the choice to do that if she wanted to, but I think that she's got every right to honour the people that helped her to get to that position. And I'll tell you something else as well. She's not going away quietly. You're quite
She's
right.
not. This non-apology tour, which has taken her to the US, it's taken her to, I think, did she go to Taiwan or Japan or Korea? She's been around the world. She's making a lot of money because she's saying to herself and she's saying to other people, I was right. History will prove me right. Let's wait and see.
Yeah, well, that's because of the fact that we've had successive interest rate rises since she was Prime Minister, and every day that the economy isn't growing and that our tax burden grows as well, I think more people will be saying, fine, the implementation was wrong, but the principle of what she was going for was right. And I argue on this show so many times saying, look, it's the tax burden that is absolutely hammering people, because it is. You could solve so many of the problems that we debate on this show about strikes, about low pay, if you actually just took the lowest paid people out of tax and went for growth.
Let's take some messages on this. We've got Carol on Facebook who says, I don't think any ex-PM should have an honours list no matter how long they've been in power. The whole thing needs scrapping because the House of Lords is too big. I guess that does raise a bigger question as should the honours list be scrapped altogether?
Well, probably
is it
a resignation.
privilege?
Because prime ministers get great power and great privilege. Like I said, there's only been 57, including Rishi Sunak. And I don't really see why they need to reward people who have helped them climb the greasy pole or funded their offices, etc. And we've seen some terrible abuses of this going back in the day, the likes of Lloyd George, and then we had Lavender Lists in more recent years, and then we've had now Liz Truss. And people who are public servants do it, you hope, because they have a calling, because they're people of ability, they want to improve life in the country. And prime ministers, I think the temptation to make wrong decisions and the temptation from others to be close to power in order for them to get something, it's too strong. We go around the world lecturing other countries on good governance. We point to countries like Niger, for example, where there's been a coup. Or even we look at the USA and see the meltdown that's happening with their democracy, the return of Trump possibly. But we have been through a really crazy period in the last few years, and it's left people saying you're more like Italy than many other countries are. You know, we've got 56 prime ministers or governments since World War II. We used to have strong and stable. Remember Theresa May saying strong and stable? That seems like a distant memory.